Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Dave here,
Ryan.
and we got our friend Kenny DeAngelo hanging out with us
How you
today.
doing?
And we are at Stormwatch Comics. And me and Ryan are kind of like the casual comic book fans. We like to pick up trade paperbacks, and I make my pilgrimage once or twice a year and get a stack of them and read through them over 5 days and get my fix. But we want to get the inside scoop on what's going on in the comic book world, and so we went to my main man here, Kenny.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot's happening in the comic book industry. I mean, if you think about it, because the movie industry has been redoing the same stuff over and over the last 15 years, they've really started branching off into the comic book world, which, in my mind, has been taking comic books and making them more themed for adults. Like when you and I were growing up and collecting comics and reading them, they were more for the kids, the teenagers, but now they're kind of getting more darker, more on the more intellectual end of things, and I think the movie industry has kind of been pushing comics going that way, which isn't a bad thing because I think everybody's getting a very good read when you're getting comics.
I remember having discussions with Ryan about this, going, I don't think kids read comic books anymore, so they kind of have to, because to me it seems like their audience is aging.
Right.
So it only stands to reason, to not write for kids anymore, because I don't think kids are really reading comic books.
Right.
But you know what? I guess you would be the guy to ask, because you see who comes in the store.
Yeah.
Are kids reading comics? That is the question.
There are kids reading comics, and I'm not going to lie. When I'm running the store is actually owned by Bob Hoskins, but when I'm here and I'm asked advice about comics, I tell them, say there's a rating on comic books. They have a rating on them, and some aren't kid friendly, and some are. And there are some comic books where parents let their kids buy them.
Whoa, wait a minute. There's a rating on comic. Was there a rating on comic books when we
Not
were
at
reading
all.
them? Okay.
Not at all.
Because really, me and Kenny are around the same age, and we probably grew up reading a lot of the same titles.
Yeah.
And the late '80s, early '90s. And I guess before we started rolling here, we were just talking about how, although the comics were really good, the titles are garbage now because they made so many.
They're
of them.
mass produced. Yeah, I think the comic book industry went the way of baseball cards, where the baseball cards were so mass produced and everybody was buying them. Now they said, now this is back in the 80s and 90s. They said, we'll do the same thing because we're losing traction here. We're not making money. So they started doing that, and people bought. I mean, a number one of this, a number one of that. People were buying it, and then you had different titles, different
holographic covers,
all that kind of.
Back then we thought we were buying investments.
Yeah,
it was like buying
it's gonna be
stocks.
so awesome. And then when you go to try to sell them or trade them in later, they're not worth the paper they were printed on. And it's sad, but it's because I look at it now and I read some of those old comics that I still have, and I say, wow, they were a great story. They were a great read. They just brought me back to that time, like a time of when I was young. I was like, I remember that, and it was fun. But if you're looking for an investment on them, very few and far between do you have something that's worth something from that time era.
Now we'll put you on the spot.
What's that?
Marvel or DC?
Wow.
Or maybe one of the independents, Image, Dark Horse.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I'm going to name a couple titles, and they're going to be cut from different groups. I think first of all, I think I'm going to stick with Marvel.
Okay.
The Marvel's, although some of the things that Marvel's doing I don't like, because they're starting a new story arc, but they're going to relaunch the whole title. It's not like everything's numbered like up to 300 or something. But right now, Marvel, some of the key titles that I like personally is the Mighty Avengers. That's a new series that just started. Amazing X-Men. It's from Chris Claremont, and it kind of gives you that old school feeling of.
Oh, cool! That guy's still around.
yeah. Deadpool. I always like Deadpool. I get stuff from DC. I started with when the DC rebooted the New 52. I get most of the Batman titles, which are really good. And I kind of get the Green Lantern, Red Lanterns. Now, Image, I just really kind of starting to picking up some new stuff because there's writers that are in Marvel and Image. Mm-hmm. And like the titles I pick up from Image, Walking Dead, which I started at issue 100, but that's a really good read. That's a good
Ever
read.
check out any of their little more, well, I mean, Walking Dead's pretty indie,
Yeah.
but stuff like, what am I thinking of? Proof was really good.
No, I haven't.
It's a really good. I mean, it's a series that was pretty short lived. It only went into 5 trade paperbacks, but like really fun art. Kind of has an X-Files sort of feel to it, except for with like what is it? Cryptozoology, which is like Loch Ness monster, chupacabra.
No, I think
like,
I've heard of it,
legend
but
type of
I've
things.
never.
Yeah,
I
it's
never
cool.
got into it. I know also from Image I've been reading East of West, which is phenomenal.
What's the feel on that one?
That one is good. That's like the Four Horsemen. There's an older version, and then there's a younger version of the Four Horsemen, and they're kind of like going to come to this moment, I think, where they're going to meet each other. It's pretty cool. It's done by Jonathan Hickman, which is just a phenomenal writer. East of West, I just mentioned that, East of West. Black Science. That's kind of like it's what was the TV show with Danger?
Lost in Space.
It's like Lost in Space, but a lot edgier. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Rick Remender does it, and that's a title I highly recommend. And then I get your typical Spider-Man, your X-Men, your Wolverine. I get all those.
How many titles are you picking up a week?
How many titles?
Or a month?
A month. A lot.
A lot. His wife, he can't really say because his wife may watch this video.
A lot.
But that's actually one of the reasons why I stopped collecting comics, to be honest with you, because I would go 2 times a week. Because I guess they used to drop on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Well, now it's just one day. They're just Wednesdays.
Okay.
Wednesdays is new book day.
Okay. Well, when I was doing it, I'm pretty sure there was 2 days they used to drop. So I go pick up my books at least once a week. And I was spending like $30-$40 a week on comics.
Yeah, I could possibly be spending a lot more than that.
They're a bit more expensive now
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So I imagine.
I will not confirm or deny whether
I plead the fifth right now.
And that's kind of why now it's like every once in a while I Jones to read a comic, so I just pick up the trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
And I used to be a Marvel fan, and I was telling Kenny earlier. Now I find myself gravitating towards the DC books. At Christmas I asked for a bunch of trade paperbacks, and I got 1 through 3 of Justice League Dark.
Yeah,
which was very good.
And DC, since their reboot, I think have done a phenomenal job redoing the characters, the ideas behind the characters, their whole demeanor. I think they're not so hokey pokey as like a cartoon superhero character, as now they're like although they're superheroes and villains and this and that in comic books, but they're almost relatable. And that's what I like about Marvel. Marvel has some of their characters that are very relatable to.
Well, I think part of DC was like that. All that stuff was intentional to kind of carry over that golden age sort of feel. Even a little decades past, but so they had this hokey stuff going on, but usually the stories are really solid.
Yeah.
Even with a character like Plastic Man, they make you care about Plastic Man, who's about one of the goofiest looking superheroes you could possibly imagine.
Right.
So
I just read a trade, Kingdom Come trade paperback, and it's pretty well known limited series that was out. But I just read the trade paperback, and I was just blown away.
I'm surprised you're just reading that now. I read that a few years back. Actually, it was yours.
Yeah.
I borrowed it from you.
Yeah, I just read that, and I was blown. I read it in one night.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
That was good.
Yeah.
Well, now, like I said, Christmas I had gotten a bunch of them, and one of them was the Savage Dragon, the Emperor Dragon storyline. I was not impressed.
Right.
It wasn't the image that I remembered. So that one, it was okay, but I just felt like the stuff that I had read from Image.
was that still Larson having a heavy hand in it, or was it?
Dude, I don't even know at this point. I had gotten a stack for Christmas, and then I sequestered myself away for 3 days and just read them all. I was like a junkie needing my fix, so I didn't even bother looking to see who read it. But like I said, I wasn't impressed with that. And here's the part of the thing too. I was much younger when I originally read The Savage Dragon. I was probably in my late teens, young adult, and now I'm approaching 40, reading the same kind of stuff. So in that I
might
wasn't
not
that,
hit you the same way.
Yeah, the storylines in the DC just grabbed me more.
Yeah, Identity Crisis is such a good read if you've ever picked that one up. It's it's a really good trade. It has some hokey things, but once you get to the explanation of why things are the way they are, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's one I didn't, but I do want to. That's something on my list to read. But the whole comic book industry is just, I think, it started really taking off, especially since the movies, and then now that the movies are done so well, before they were kind of.
Do you think now that with the movies releasing, you're getting more younger people back in?
Yes.
Is that helping out?
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
actually, that's getting more people back in. That's getting people in,
in general.
We have one of the biggest things about working here at the comic book store, and just in general, and just helping people at shows and whatever, comic book shows, is seeing like the new time comic book people, because you get to suggest something to them, you get to talk to them and get a feel, and they get really excited, like, wow, this is awesome. But yeah, you're getting a lot of younger people and a lot of older people. You're getting people who used to be in the comics who got out,
So
The thrill of popping that cherry, huh?
Yeah, right.
Are you seeing much in that trend of like newer, younger audiences gravitating more towards the sort of big flagship titles, or is there maybe some of that's going more towards like the more indie stuff, maybe some of the stuff that might have started as webcomics and this and that?
More flagship stuff,
Yeah.
more stuff that's Captain America. This like I was working here Friday, and somebody wanted to know about Captain America. So I pointed them out to a couple trade paperbacks. This will help you out and this and that, and a couple of the Marvel milestones that go back into the golden age of comics. And we sold a couple of them to some people. So but it's neat to see that, because it's like they have the enthusiasm and the zeal to get the book. They're real excited.
Well, after you just bring it up, Captain America. Well, me and Ryan went and saw Winter Soldier the other day. And it was great. They did so many more shield tricks.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. The combat was like, did you see how light on his feet Captain America was?
Yeah.
Like when he was like, in the previews you saw this, where he like raids that ship, like the ship that's been taken over, whatever, pirated. Like just how light, he lands. Like you barely hear the slightest of sounds as he's like landing on.
He's super agile.
Yeah,
he goes toe to toe with Batroc the Leaper.
Sand shield.
Yeah, without the shield, like it was nothing. And fighting with the Winter Soldier, you see them both going at it full speed, and they're like, God damn, that's why he's Captain America.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't seen it, go out and see that movie. It was a friggin' great movie. I loved it. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Absolutely. Like the first one, they kind of did all the hokey things because it's like 1940s and like kind of, the vibe in the country was a lot more hopeful, a lot more patriotic. And like they kind of brought it back to present day with the latest Cap movie, kind of where people sit,
Even with that though, what they did is they brought it to present day, but yet Cap still had that feel like he was from that time.
Well, oh yeah,
I think they did a great job of maintaining that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, certain plot things like there's some developments that Cap wasn't so happy about, but you'll see it.
Yeah,
you should see it.
Yeah, it's I haven't seen it, but I will see it.
Yeah.
So
Slacker.
yeah, I know. So
a thing that I was watching this interview with Todd McFarlane, and he was saying that like how basically 2 studios own absolutely all the rights to all the superhero movies, and
To
like,
the top 80 characters.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, he was saying that if you're an indie like comic book developer, like now is the time, because they're hungry for this, because it's a proven business model that like these movies do blockbuster ticket takes, So I don't know if you want to speak to that or
yeah, I think it's funny because you see a lot of artists or even writers going from Marvel to Image, back and forth, and I don't know how they structure their contract, but I think for the independent comics, I think you're going to see a boom in that, because I think that's the younger writers and the younger artists that aren't doing it in Marvel or DC are getting eaten up by those companies. They want that fresh young blood in there, so they can come off with a limited series of X title, and then see where that goes, and then maybe whatever character they just developed, maybe do another series, but I think the independents, I think, are really going to make a strong comeback or they're going to get
especially
stronger.
with things with like Kickstarter, all the sort of crowdfunding sort of opportunities. Like if you can build a strong enough following around whatever it is you do, and like quality always rises to the top. Like if you can get enough people looking at and talking about what you do, and it's good,
right?
Then the funding's going to be there. So I don't know. I feel like we're on the verge of a renaissance with all that stuff too. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it is. That's the absolute truth. Like, you don't, before, to be anybody, you had to get signed by one of the big two.
Right.
And now there's so many people that are doing their own thing. I mean, I recently took part in a Kickstarter for a comic book, just because I liked the idea. I thought it was interesting, so I threw the guy $100 and said, hey, live your dream if you can make it happen. Yeah. Which before, they didn't have that opportunities. And, you got to, if you haven't seen the interview with Todd McFarlane, he was talking about, you got to check it out. Because he was talking about right now, all the movie rights for the biggest superhero characters are owned by two companies, essentially. And, that's like the top 80 heroes, right? Or characters.
All the characters people would basically want to see.
Right, but he's like, well, if you got number 81, that's like having number 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because there's all these other movie companies that are going to be chopping at the bit. And he did allude to that he's going to be making another Spawn where he's going to have full control.
More gritty,
full writing,
more adult,
full directing.
And that's funny because that's what you see now. You see a lot of the creators of the characters or the main writers having more control in that. Robert Kirkman in Walking Dead, the TV show, he's like the end all.
Well, I mean, you look at those Golden Age guys like the Kirbys, the guy who created X-Men, blanking, the guy who created.
It wasn't John Byrne, was it? No.
The guy who created Superman. Right. Just like how like the contracts that they signed, like they got fucked by.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like,
literally.
So like to be,
they're
to
still
be way
still
more
having
savvy.
problems. They're still going through issues.
So
Joel Schuster and the other guy that did that, I think they just got awarded something, but it's back then, it was. I think they were a little more sneaky.
Well, no, I don't think the sneakiness has gone away. People got educated, I think.
You're right.
Yeah, like you learn.
They didn't think they had a choice.
Yeah.
And then here comes Todd McFarlane, who's like kind of flips the bird at everybody and just does his own thing and just opened the floodgates for everybody.
Yeah.
No, I think Image did do big things for sort of the creator-owned ideal. Like, if it wasn't for an Image coming along, like, people might not have thought as much to, like, retain their rights, to this thing. Because, properties, intellectual properties, they have value. Like, more value than the paper that they're printed on, those characters. So, when you talk about things like, video games, things for the web, the movies that are going to come, all the merchandise, merchandising is king, so as we're surrounded by little statuettes of Batman and Catwoman and everything like that, action figures, so.
And some of those action figures, they're pricey and they are done very well.
Yeah. Well, again, Todd McFarlane went and did that too with the toys, he I think he revolutionized it. Because he looked at the stuff that was out there and says, I want to make the toys I want to buy.
Yeah.
Well, they're art objects as opposed to like playthings. Like my Ninja Turtles with the single joint type of thing that really couldn't do that much. Yeah, those were the action figures of our day and age. But now, we have things with ridiculous points of articulation that you can pretty much pull off just about any single pose you see in a comic book, to make the character do that. Which is a cool thing.
You got anything you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. Any other questions?
Okay. No, you got anything?
Good.
All right. So basically, our little conversation about the casual comic book fan
connoisseur
and the connoisseur here is coming to a close. So if you happen to be in the South Jersey area, we're at Stormwatch in Berlin.
Berlin, and I'm going to read the address because it always throws me off. We're right here on Route 73. 449 Route 73 North, P.O. Box 276, West Berlin, New Jersey. Our phone number is 856-768-8186. For any, just give a call. The owner's Bob Hoskins. He's very, as I said before, Bob is one of those the owner, Bob, is one of those types of people you walk in the store and he can make you feel like you're the only one in the world and he treats you with respect, whatever you want, any questions, he's always willing to help you out.
Well, so. I can vouch for that. I've come in here before, and basically I wanted to get my son into reading comic books, and I'm like, he's You know, I won't, and that's what I said. Look, I want to get some comic books for my son to read. What can you suggest? What can you recommend? And you know, he asked me a couple of questions and made some suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's a great place to come and do business and hang out. And that's all we got for you. Nerdarchy out.
I'm Ryan here.
Dave and our friend Kenny.
Yep.
For nerds, by nerds. Until next time.
We'll see you around.